Hi, hello, welcome to LearnStroke IAS classes by Arjun. You're listening to the daily Hindu news analysis for IAS current affairs, news leads, and with Arjun R Shankar. We are discussing the 2 day current affairs actually. We're discussing 29th December and 30th December 2022. So, combinedly, 2 days current affairs, news leads is being discussed here. Let's check the first important one. The first important news leads talks about remote EVM. What do you mean by a concept of remote EVM? Remote EVMs are going to be played. That means remote EVM ready to help migrant vote outside states, says Election Commission. So I'm giving you a mains question here. What do you mean by an remote electronic voting machine? What is a remote voting machine and what are some of the challenges regarding this? So you need to know that what is a remote electronic voting machine. Everybody knows that there is an electronic voting machine. This is important from GS paper 2, polity, law and governance. So this is how you vote in a democracy like India. You have the electronic voting machine. So what do you mean by remote voting machine, which clearly says that the machine allows migrant voters living outside their home constituency to vote from their current residence. So this is basically created to help the large number of migrants who are actually facing a problem in voting. So that means if you are actually from Rajasthan and you are actually currently residing in Karnataka, in Bangalore. So what happens is when you have to vote, you have to go back to Rajasthan, Jaipur, and cast your vote. So the machine allows migrant voters living outside their home constituency to vote from their current residence. So you are currently posted in Karnataka, Bengaluru. You can actually vote. You put your vote in Bengaluru rather than from Jaipur. So that is the concept, and it has got a lot of challenges. So the Election Commission has announced the development of a prototype of a multi-constituency remote electronic voting machine, which is actually helping a large number of migrant voters. The machines can handle multiple constituencies from one remote booth. So from a one single booth, it can handle multiple constituency. So the various political parties in India have opposed this, saying that this could actually undermine the trust in the electoral system. So a lot of people criticize this as this is not a good move. And you know why the government has actually come up with this? Basically because in 2019 general election, you should see that the voter turnout, the number of people who turn out for the vote election was just 67.4%. And the Election Commission was largely concerned about the issue of around 30 crore people. 30 crore electors could not exercise their franchisee or they could not vote. So that is one of the reasons why everybody is asking for a remote electronic voting machine. You can see that what you can do, you must register offline and online, and after successful verification in the home constituency, the voter will be approved for remote voting facility. And is it a good thing? What is your opinion? Because there is something also called as voter portability. This is the same concept of voter portability. So wherever you are, you can actually do that. And what are some of the laws that will be amended by this? So among the laws and rules that would need an amendment to implement remote voting is the RP Act 1950 and the RP Act 1951, the conduct of rules, and 1961, and the registration of electoral rules 1960. So these are some of the laws which needs to be changed if they need to come. And there are many problems, like they can create a lot of administrative challenges, like how do you enumerate the number of voters, the self-declaration, the secrecy of voting, and how do the people must be from different areas. How are you going to administratively bring everything? How to avoid the large number of confusion, especially we are talking about India. That is the big problem that we have to know about this. So what do you mean by remote voting machine and what are the practical challenges? It's a mains question also. Moving on to the next important news is need patriotic citizens in border villages for national security, GS paper 3 defense. So this brings us very important questions in this article. You need patriotic citizens in border villages for national security. You know that India's borders, in every national border, is actually having a lot of problems, whether it be Pakistan, whether it be China, Bangladesh. Every border is actually having problems, and we need patriotic citizens to avoid this. And this brings us important questions. What is Vibrant Village Program, or VVP? And what is Pradhanmantri Ayushman Bharat Yojana? So, what do you mean by the Pradhanmantri Ayushman Bharat, and what is Vibrant Village? Because the Union Home Minister said the borders could be permanently secured only when border villages are populated by patriotic citizens who have concerns of this country. And this concept of Vibrant Village Program can actually help this in this regard. So you need to know, what do you mean by this concept of Vibrant Village Program? The Vibrant Village Program has been announced in the Finance Minister's budget speech in 2022. And the program basically envisages coverage of border villages on northern border having very sparse population, limited connectivity and infrastructure, which often gets left out from the developmental gains. So you need to, the Vibrant Village Program said you need to give the villages of the border areas more connectivity, more development, etc. That is one important aspect of creating this Vibrant Village Program. It includes construction of infrastructure, housing, creating more tourist centers, road connectivity, energy, even having Doordarshan, the direct access to TV channels, Doordarshan, education channels, and a lot of things are Vibrant Village Program. So these can actually help this. So know about this. And next is definitely regarding the Pradhan Mantri Ayushman Bharat. What is Ayushman Bharat? Obviously, you need to know, what do you mean by Ayushman Bharat scheme? So Ayushman Bharat is basically Healthy India. It's a national initiative launched by Prime Minister Modi as a part of the National Health Policy 2017 in order to achieve the universal health coverage. So this initiative has been made to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDG. So please know about Ayushman Bharat and Vibrant Village Program. So know about this article in detail. Next is Uttar Pradesh moves Supreme Court against order to hold urban local polls without OBC reservation. This is a very important article from the perspective of GS Paper 2, Polity, Law and Governance, because this brings us the concept of reservation, because you know that the economically and socially economically backward classes are definitely getting the reservation, and that brings us to an important area, whether the reservation, as said, that is the reason why we have some important concept like Article 15 clause 4 and 16 clause 4 of the Constitution, and Articles 243D and Article 243T of the Indian Constitution, because it is very clear that that the reservation benefits are actually given inside this, because under Article 15 clause 4 and Article 16 clause 4, reservation is actually given in higher education, public employment. But does that apply to the context of reservation in the seat in panchayat and municipality? So definitely reservation needs to come from higher education and public employment, Article 15 clause 4 and 16 clause 4. But does that mean it should be applied to the reservation of seat in panchayats as well as municipalities? So UP government has moved the Supreme Court against the Allahabad High Court to hold local body elections in the state without reservation of OBC. Uttar Pradesh has, the Allahabad High Court said that you should carry on the elections in the state without reservation for the OBC class, because the case raises the fundamental question whether the quota for political representation in urban self-government bodies can be equated with reservation, higher education or public employment. So it is the question, does giving reservation for education and public employment like Article 15 clause 4 and 64, likewise, can you give the same reservation in the election of panchayat and municipality seats? Does that apply? That is a big question. So they went to the Supreme Court, and you can actually see that the 1994 Reservation Act identified backward classes to provide them quota to access higher education, public employment, and not for the purpose of political representation. So that was what 1994 Reservation Act said. But you should see that the Article 243D and 243T forms a very distinct and independent constitutional basis for reservation in local self-government. So the court said that social and economic backwardness cannot be the sole criterion for identifying backward classes which are inadequately represented politically. So whether it should be given politically or not is something that we have to discuss. So please know about the constitutional provisions, Article 15 Clause 4 and 16 Clause 4, and Article 243D and 243T. Moving on to the next article is regarding the CBFC wants changes in Pathan movie, directs makers to submit revised version. Everybody knows that recently the Shah Rukh Khan movie was banned after the song the Besharam Rang, actually, in which Deepika Padukone's dress attire was severely criticized by the different political parties in India. That has actually been discussed. So in this context, what do you mean by CBFC? Because you need to know the Central Board of Film Certification. So you need to know that Central Board of Film Certification is actually a statutory body. You should know that it's actually a statutory body under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, and it is actually regulating the public exhibition of films under the provisions of Cinematograph Act 1952. So there is something called as the Cinematograph Act 1952. So it's under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. It deals with the films can be publicly exhibited in India only after they have been certified by the CBFC. So it is actually under the Cinematograph Act 1952, and it is actually a statutory body, and the board consists of non-official members and a chairman, and all of them are appointed by the central government and functions with the headquarters at Mumbai. It is actually headquartered in Mumbai, and it has got 9 regional offices. And please do know about the Cinematograph 1952 is the main governing thing. So when you know about the Central Board of Film Certification or CBFC. Moving on, next is ICHR now publishes only papers. So this is an article, so you need to know what is ICHR, which is actually the Indian Council of Historical Research. It's very important. The Indian Council of Historical Research is the ICHR. So this article talks about various things, and it talks about the ICHR was basically founded when Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister and Professor R S Sharma was the chairman, the famous historian. And it talks about various important works, and it talks about the resistance of how history has been treating the history of Christians and history of Muslims. And it also talks about one of the main debate is which says that Christians and Muslims are people who came outside India and they came to India. But there is a theory which says that even Aryans and the Vedas of India are actually, if Aryans are of a Central Asian origin, if they have come from outside, obviously the Vedas have also come from outside. So that means the whole system, Indian history is completely taken from outside. So the article talks about such a debate, and it talks about something called as what is the Kudawale system. The Kudawale system, and you should know what do you mean by the Kudawale system. The Kudawale system of Adiremerur. So what do you mean by the Kudawale system is actually a very notable and a unique feature of the administration of Cholas. So it is very popular in the administration of Cholas, and there are around 30 wards in each village, and a representative from each ward is actually selected. So this is actually the Kudawale system is actually a system in the Chola period. The article talks about that too. Next is IAF Test Files Extended Range BrahMos Cruise Missile GS Paper 3 Defense. So you need to know it also fired the extended range version of the BrahMos missile. So please do know about the BrahMos cruise missile, and it was again launched against a ship target from the Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter aircraft. Next is study shows Tamil Nadu is worst performing in RTI responsiveness, GS Paper 2 governance and polity, etc. You know that Right to Information Act 2005 is a very important act in which citizens of this country have the right to ask the government about information about the functioning of the system in India. So how well do you think is RTI used in India is another question. But the State Information Commission of Tamil Nadu has been the worst performing in responsiveness under the RTI Information Act. That means out of 100 information sought, only 14% of the information is actually given. So which is the worst performing? That means you don't give the information. And Maharashtra was the second worst, sharing 23% of the information is actually being shared. So you should know that the State Information Commission of Tamil Nadu was the worst performing, as it denied most of the information sought, including the number of appeals and the complaints dealt by the IC, the details, everything. It did not give the information correctly. And even the State Information Commission of Chhattisgarh denied information on several points. And you will not believe, there are certain uh, assumptions that they said actually. um, it even said that when in Tamil Nadu, when they asked information, the government actually gave a detail that this detail could not be furnished because getting the approval of, because this information, you need to get the approval of the state legislative assembly. Only if you get the state legislative assembly's approval, you can get this information. So that is absolutely wrong, because there is no such provision in the RTI Act. So you can see that RTI, you know about what is RTI, and Tamil Nadu has become the worst state in India, which is actually giving the right to information, followed by Maharashtra. Even Chhattisgarh, Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, the appeals are worstly performing. Next is regarding the COVID spike. India can expect a rise in the number of COVID-19 cases, but whether it will lead to a large scale COVID wave is very unlikely at this point of time. So everybody is getting prepared for the COVID spike. Next is a fighter jets to touch down on NH16 as a part of a trial run. So NH National Highway 16 in the Baptala district of Andhra Pradesh as a part of emergency landing. Wow, that is a good thing. It is a very interesting thing, because now the fighter jets, because I still remember there was a news a few years back when a pilot accidentally landed on the national highway instead of the airport, which was very close to the airport. So the pilot actually made a mistake, and he landed. He did not land it. He actually almost landed in the road, but he realized that it is not the highway. It is not the runway. It is the highway. But now people are saying that the Indian Air Force pilots are telling that in case of an emergency, definitely the Indian roads, the roads which are now constructed, national highways, should also be ready for emergency landing in the roads. So that is what is being said. A 4.1 kilometer stretch in Andhra Pradesh, in the Baptala district of Andhra Pradesh, is actually getting ready for the emergency trial. A good thing. And more than 18 people die due to the syrup made by an Indian firm, says Uzbekistan ministry. So a lot of people, previously also we know that Gambia, a lot of children died in Gambia with the syrup, and the similar thing, syrup has actually created more number of deaths. So this brings us, what is ethylene glycol, and where is Gambia? The health ministry of Uzbekistan said 18 children with acute respiratory disease have died from taking excessive doses of a cup syrup Doc 1 Max, manufactured by an Indian company, and that has created a lot of deaths. So even in Gambia we had this problem. So this brings us, where is Gambia located? Have an idea in this. Take Africa. You can see that near Guinea, there is Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Mauritania, Western Sahara. You can see with Nigeria is something that you see when you go left hand side to the Nigeria, you can see Benin, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Gambia. Where is Gambia located in the map? You should, world geography perspective, you need to know. It's very near to the North Atlantic Ocean. Gambia is actually very close to the North Atlantic Ocean, and it's near to Senegal. It's near to Senegal, the football playing country. So please do understand where is Gambia located, because and you can know that since the main component of the drug is paracetamol, the Doc 1 Max syrup was incorrectly used as an anti-cold remedy on the recommendation of the pharmacy sellers, and many children were given the drug without doctor's prescription, and a lot of children died. So this is actually even the previous incident of Gambia and the incident of Uzbekistan, everything is actually putting bad name in the Indian pharmaceutical industry. So please do know about all these aspects very clearly. And moving on to the next important article is the High Court. High Court seeks status report on caste-based discrimination in Tamil Nadu village. Whether it is a caste-based marriage or any problem, every time this problems comes in the newspaper, this time it is actually a violation of the caste discrimination against the scheduled caste people, because they said the Madurai bench of Madras High Court directed the Pudukkottai collector, SP, DSP, Human Rights Justice Department to file a status report for a PIL, public interest litigation, filed for a caste-based discrimination in a district. You know what happened? He said the petitioner was actually a part of the Periyar Ambedkar Makkal Kadagam. There was a caste-based discrimination against villagers, scheduled caste members. He said human faces, you can just see the human faces or excreta, were found floating in the overhead tank supplying drinking water to the scheduled caste families. And even the state was having a issue called two tumbler system. During Ambedkar's time, this was very noted. They complained of a two tumbler system, and even the denial of haircuts was denied to scheduled caste people. The two tumbler system, where you have two different kind of tumbler of taking water, and the human excreta was actually in the tank, so they were not cleaning it. It's a gross violation against caste discrimination. So GS paper 4 questions as a case study question: as a district collector, if such an issue is happening, what steps will you take to solve such a crisis? It's an important question to be noted at this point. Moving on to the next important question is, as court insists on triple test for rule for OBC quotas in polls, state governments push back. This is the same thing that we already discussed in the previous news. As what is caste census? Because everybody is asking for the OBC reservation, because should OBC reservation be given just like you give it for education and employment or higher employment, or should it be given in the local self-government election in the quota? Should there be included in that? And one of the view is saying that the Allahabad High Court shot down the caste census conducted by, because you know what happened, the lack of data of OBC people is very important. Whether you want to give the reservation is secondary. How do you know that how many OBC people are there? You need to have caste census. But what happened is, you will not believe that the UP government, the Uttar Pradesh government, conducted a caste census. They conducted a UP caste census to find out OBC class. But the Allahabad High Court shot down the caste census, saying that it is not proper, it is improper, and it is not enough to provide political reservation in local body election. So you are desperate to give OBC reservation. You did a caste census, but that caste census that the UP government has done is not proper. It is not clear. So that is the reason why there is no proper enumeration of OBC caste people. So that is the main issue that is being talked here. And that is the reason why government is asking for a triple test. What do you mean by triple test? A triple test requires state government to set up dedicated commission for inquiry into finding out backwardness specifically with respect to local bodies. So you need to do it from a local body perspective. You need to do a triple test, find out the real backwardness OBC community. So which is not done properly is one thing that the Allahabad High Court is telling. So please do remember about the election process, and should the reservation be given in the local body elections. Next is, delegated law should not travel beyond the purview of Parent Act. That is very important. GS paper 2 law. What do you mean by the delegated legislation? That brings us, delegated legislation, including rules and regulations formed by the state and central authorities, should not supersede but supplement the parliamentary statute from it draws power. So you need to understand what do you mean by delegated legislation. So delegation basically means entrusting a person with the power or empowering him to act on behalf of that person. So just imagine that exercising of legislative power by an agent who is lower in rank to the legislature or subordinate to the legislature. So when you say delegated legislation, sometimes you say that for an executive or someone who is actually lesser than the legislature is given the power. So the article says that when a delegated legislation is there, you should always act according to the power of the law that has been given in the statute or given in the law. Just because, say, imagine that you are a person, the power is the main authority is A. The A has delegated the power, the decision making, to B. So B is a lesser person. He is doing the delegated legislation on the behalf of A. And according to A, there are certain laws and regulations according to which certain things should be done. Okay, fine. So B is supposed to do it accordingly, the rules and regulations of A. But B, in order to function, should not create a separate rules and regulations as B wants to do. So that is what is say. You should not supersede the law which is actually already there. If a rule goes beyond the rule making power conferred by the statute, the same has to be declared invalid. So since A has given the power for B to do something, B is supposed to do the things, do the delegated legislation as per A and the rules and regulations of A. And if B wants to do something on its own, B does not have the power. B should not be given the power to do something on its own. So that is what is said. Delegated law should not travel beyond the purview of the parent act. The parent act here is A and the rules surrounding A. B is not supposed to do anything beyond that. So GS paper 2, know about what you mean by delegated legislation also. Moving on to the next one is G20 Campaigns for Online Safety Digital Innovations Unveiled. So this brings us GS paper 2 International Relations. This brings us to important question. What is Digital Innovation Alliance program? How is it facilitating the innovative digital ecosystem? Examine. So what do you mean by the Digital Innovation Alliance program? Let's understand it very quickly. And in this article, you talks about the Digital and Innovation Alliance. I'm giving a mains question here. What is Digital Innovation Alliance? How is it facilitating the innovative digital ecosystem? And the article also talks about what is Sherpa? What is Digital Innovation Alliance program? So this is basically talking about the objective of G20 Innovation Alliance DIA is to identify, recognize, and enable the adoption of innovative and impactful digital technologies developed by the startups from G20 nations as the invited. So basically, this talks about what? This basically talks about 174 startups from member countries with inviting countries involving together for creating digital innovations or digital solutions. They want to create digital solutions like what? So basically understand, it is to identify, recognize, and enable the adoption of impactful digital technologies. So the Digital Innovation Alliance is creating, identifying, recognizing innovation digital technologies to what? Which is actually very critical under agri-tech, health tech, ed-tech, fintech, and digital infrastructure. So DIA is very important. Digital Innovation Alliance is actually connecting the startups of G20 countries to create digital solutions and help each other in the context of important sectors like agri-tech, health tech, ed-tech, fintech, digital infrastructure, etc. So know about this concept of what is a G20 campaign. Next is Praveen Kumar Srivastava appointed as acting CVC. So this brings us GS paper to polity. Who is a Central Vigilance Commissioner or a CVC? You should know that the CVC was set up by the government in 1964 on the recommendation of the Santanam Committee. And you need to know that in 2003, the Parliament enacted the Central Vigilance Commission Act conferring statutory rights on CVC. So now the Parliament has given Central Vigilance Commissioner is a statutory body, and the CVC is not controlled by any ministry. It's actually done by the Santanam Committee. It is not based on any particular ministry or department. It is an independent body which is responsible to the Parliament. So the chief Central Vigilance, you can see that the Central Vigilance Commissioner is actually getting complaints on corruption or misuse of office, and they also can approach central government, Lokpal, even the RT Act. Anybody can approach the Central Vigilance Commissioner to give them complaints on corruption and misuse of public office, etc. And the CVC either gets the investigation done through CBI or through other vigilance officers. So it has also the power to ask CBI to conduct an inquiry. So know who is the Central Vigilance Commissioner. You can see after 2020 COVID blip, road fatalities on the rise. So when you see that the COVID, during the COVID time lockdown, everybody was inside the home, so there was less accidents in the country because nobody was driving on the road. The accidents were very limited. But recently, say that after the COVID-19, the accidents have increased. The fatalities of accidents resumed, and a lot of total of 4 lakh people road accidents are reported in the country, claiming almost 1.5 lakh lives are lost. Just imagine. So you should know that on an average, you can see that on average 1130 accidents happen in India, and 422 deaths every day. And you can see 47 accidents are happening every hour and 18 death every hour. You can say that 18 people die every hour in India due to road accidents. So the most number of people were died basically were from the hit from behind, and the second, many of the people died because head-on collision. And next was overspeeding. Overspeeding was another important aspect, and use of mobile phones. Death is also one of the important factors. Next is regarding Ekalavya teachers to receive training in computer science. So this brings us what do you mean by the Ekalavya schools, and the tribal minister has kicked on creating Ekalavya schools and giving them computer education to Ekalavya schools. So what do you mean by Ekalavya school? Ekalavya, it is actually called as the Ekalavya Model Residential School. That is the concept of EMRS. It was created in 1997 to impart quality education to scheduled tribe children in remote areas. So the school not only focus on academic education but also on the all-round development of the students. And each school has a capacity of 480 students from class 6 to 12th. So the state government is getting grants under Article 275(1) of the Constitution say. So Ekalavya Model School, please do know about this in detail. And next is Benjamin Netanyahu is again elected as the new Israel's prime minister. That is something, he is the longest serving minister. Again, you should know in this regard that Benjamin Netanyahu was actually taking in, he is one of the longest serving ministers in this regard. So what are going to be his most important challenges that he has to do? It is something that we have to discuss in this regard. So you can see that Netanyahu is actually the country's longest serving prime minister from 2009, and even into 1990s he was heading that. There's going to be a huge responsibility for him to solve the Israel's problems. And what do you mean by this article? First consignment of Indo-Australia Pact flagged off. So this brings us to another important area called what is India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, or INDOS ECTA. What do you mean by ECTA, or Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement? How will the agreement benefit the countries? Discuss. So India and Australia is actually engaging under INDOS ECTA, which is Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. So you can see that the ECTA is very important in this regard, and ECTA will actually help both the countries achieve a lot of almost close to 10 billion trade by 2026, $10 billion. So that is huge. So know about what do you mean by ECTA. Next is regarding current account deficit widens in Q2 to a 9-year high of 4.4%. So this brings us the current account has, the India's current account balance recorded a deficit of almost, it's a huge amount, to 4.4%. You need to know what do you mean by current account deficit. So you need to know current account deficit, GS paper 3 economy, is the shortfall between the money received by selling products to other countries and the money spent to buy goods and services from other nations. So if the value of goods and services we import exceeds the value of those we export, the country is said to be in a deficit. So imagine that we are selling jewelry, we are selling gems and jewelry to another country, and we are selling gems and jewelry to Australia, and we are taking petrol or natural gas and crude oil from Russia. We're taking it from Russia. So what happened is the uh, the value of goods and services, we import exceeds the value of those we export. That means the country is actually in a deficit. And the difference in the two values is current account deficit. And I can tell you, that means we are getting more crude oil from Russia rather than exporting gems and jewelry to Australia. So we are in a deficit. We give more money to buy things rather than getting money. So if we sell gems and jewelry, we would get a lot of money into our hand. So that is not happening here. So a deficit is actually happening here. So that is something that we need to know. So know about current account deficit. The current account deficit has widened to 4.4%. So please do check in regarding this. And next article is regarding the FDI service sector. FDI is chasing the service sector despite manufacturing. So what do you mean by foreign direct investment, GS paper 3? So the article says that the central government of India is completely promoting the Make in India campaign, but the foreign investors are still investing in the service sector rather than the manufacturing sector. And the most popular services being trading, telecom, banking, insurance, IT, BPO, tourism were some of the most important of the foreign investors. So the foreign direct investment is coming more into the service sector rather than the expected manufacturing. So the FDI in manufacture is getting more slower. So why is it getting more slower is something that we have to understand in this regard. So these are some of the most important news leads of the day. So listen to LearnStroke IAS classes by Arjun, subscribe to the channel, and please do share it with your friends. And there are more interesting news coming up. So please do listen it carefully.